Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the newlywed Kevin Cunningham. Youngster, you did it. You put a ring on your finger. How do you like the music I'm playing in the background just for you?
It's very nice, Troy. I appreciate it very much. But yeah, I don't know. People have asked me like, hey, how does it feel to be married? How's this? How's that? Has anything changed? And it's like, well, nothing's changed. I don't feel any different. It's weird for me. I'm Troy, and I don't think I've told the listeners this at all ever, you included, over the years that I've known you now. I don't have any tattoos. I don't have any piercings. I never wear rings, watches, necklaces, bracelets, whatever. So for me to have a ring on my finger now is like very weird to me. I know for, any normal guy, I think wearing a watch is a fairly typical thing. Get some interesting road music.
Excuse the traffic in Pittsburgh. They're a little hasty today. A little road rage going on here on the show today. This should be a fun one. I don't know what's going on ahead of me. I can't see. While I'm talking, I'm going to say this, though, to you, youngster. I'm like you. I have not worn a watch probably about 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And like you, to have a ring on your finger, you kind of play with it for the first month or so. Like, what is this? And I told you my story. Mine didn't fit on my wedding day. Then I got it back, and now it doesn't come off. Like, literally, it doesn't come off. So you get used to it after a while. But I'm like you. I never wear jewelry, and you'll fiddle with it for about a month, youngster. So continue. How is everything else? How are the festivities? How was the wedding? How was the honeymoon? I'm tired of people honking.
The festivities itself, the wedding day, the days leading up to the wedding were cool. I got to spend time with not only two of my best friends from down south in southern Florida, who made their way up to Jacksonville, but also two of my best friends from middle school, high school, college up in Wisconsin that flew down. So I was able to chill with them for a few days beforehand. That was awesome. And then the wedding day itself was obviously cool. The wedding itself didn't take place till like 6 p.m., so I'm just kind of walking the streets. We had this wedding in St. Augustine, which is the oldest town in the United States, so there's a lot of cool different stuff to just walk around downtown there, see, do, drink, whatever. So that's what we did basically until 5 o'clock, got ready, went to the wedding, and ta-da, ceremony lasted whatever it was, 20, 30 minutes, and then obviously had the festivities afterwards. That was fun. And then Monday, so I got married Sunday. Monday was kind of a chill day where we got everything back to Jacksonville. It's like an hour drive from the venue back to Jacksonville. Did all that stuff and then prepared for the honeymoon, which was this past week. That's why I missed last week's show. I apologize to all the loyal listeners who listen to the show. But I'm sure you had an enjoyable time listening to Troy, not listening to me. But now I'm back after a couple days in San Diego, a few days in Disneyland out there in California. That was all nice. Went to Coronado Island, which is out by San Diego. That was really nice. Everything was great. Food was fantastic for the last week of my life. And now today I had Taco Bell on my way home. So I'm back to reality now, but I should have hopefully exciting news for next week's show potentially. As far as a little job that I may be picking up here. So that could be cool. It's in the works as of today. I got contacted about it during my honeymoon. So anyway, that's also Big Ten related, so I'm excited for that potentially if all goes well there. Sounds like it will. But today, obviously talking about a couple major topics, somewhat short in terms of length, but then also previewing the 2018 season for Michigan, Northwestern, Michigan State, Penn State. I have failed to do my homework prior to this show. I will jot down, a few notes as we go along here so that I don't sound completely clueless. But we've got a really jam-packed show outside of talking about my wedding for the last, 5-10 minutes. But Troy, how have you been for the last week? It seems like I haven't talked to you, and I know it's been 2 weeks, but it seems like 2 months.
It does. It seems like a long, long time. You think about a youngster, we're going on 2 years doing this show.
Yeah.
And that's every week talking, and then all of a sudden, you have to go run off and get married. But, I know you graciously asked if I was going to be able to make it. I tried, but with my work, I couldn't make a long weekend out of it. With a Sunday night wedding, I would have had to take at least Monday and possibly Tuesday off. So logistically, I just couldn't make it work. I wish I could have been there. Excuse me. People honking. Now I'm choking. Ooh, this is going to be one heck of a show. But we do have a great show today. And I know you weren't on the weekly radio show that we do on Saturday, but last week on that show, I started talking about the Maryland tragedy. A football player passes away, and it was the talk, really, of NCAA football when camps are starting. It actually overtook the Urban Meyer situation for a little bit. So We're going to talk about the Maryland situation. Then we're going to change gears, and we're actually going to talk about the Urban Meyer situation because Ohio State has scheduled a press conference. Rumor has it a suspension is coming down. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to give our quick thoughts on that, and then we're going to get into the real good stuff, previewing some teams that were just right there on the fringe last year, seeing if they can make any noise this year. We talked about it in our pregame show. The AP preseason poll came out, youngster, and the old man just loves those preseason polls. They are to me, they're like cement. I'm being sarcastic, folks. I could care less about preseason polls. However, the one thing I'll take away from it is that the Big Ten got some respect this year. They got respect putting 5 of the top 14 teams in the top 14, Kevin. So to me, at least, it shows that writers, coaches, they're showing respect now to the Big Ten, slotting 5 teams there in the top 14. But other than that, it really means nothing to me other than, okay, well, you think they're going to be good. But the respect level of the Big Ten, that makes me proud. So let's get right into it, Kevin. Maryland football player passes away, 106-degree temperature. And I don't want to get into the details about who's right or wrong here. And I know that you were out on your honeymoon, didn't get to do a lot of background on it because I just sprung the topic on you. But I did want the listeners to get a coach's point of view from this, because if you look at social media and the outcry that this coach should have automatically been fired, I'm not taking sides. I'm not taking this side of the spectrum or this side, but I think people need to kind of sit back and, like we always say, youngster, you got to get all the facts. You can't make decisions until you have all of the facts. Now, outside of the death, there's also some other allegations going on that this coach was a bully and the staff was a bully. Or the whole staff was bullying, doing things that were not appropriate of a college coach. I told you, I think you agreed with me, those are 2 separate situations on what happened. Unless he was doing the bullying to cause the effect. And so I wanted to get your quick thoughts on this, youngster. Then I want to share a coach's perspective on heat exhaustion, on running camp in August in the heat. You can't get away from it. You've got to prepare, and you got to prepare them in the off season. And I'm going to get into that, but I wanted to get your quick thoughts on the Maryland incident.
Yeah. Again, like you said, unfortunately, for this week's show, I am just not as prepared as I usually would want to be, because I've been obviously busy with other stuff. From what I know, this Maryland case, I won't get into the heat stuff yet. First, I'll just talk about the whole bullying thing. And it's not just the coach, DJ Durkin. It's, like you said, Troy, parts of the coaching staff, and I believe it's the strength and conditioning coach that quit. I don't remember if it was yesterday or, again, my days are jumbled up here. But I believe the strength and conditioning coach has resigned already.
Well, he was forced. I think he was forced to resign, youngster. That was one of those things where he decided that he was going to write this letter on social media, see how grateful he was. But I think that was a forced hand to make him resign. Otherwise, they're going to fire him. So they let him do the high road, and they let him resign from that position, which, it happens in the world of business. So I just wanted to throw that out there and chime in because, like you said, You were off getting married, doing the honeymoon thing. If I have a little tidbit, I'll just interrupt you and throw some fact verification in there for you.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it. I'm curious, Troy, too. I don't know if you know this, what the deal is with it, but why, like, let's say if you were the Maryland AD and you think this coach has been terrible and a part of this bullying, and whether it led to this death or not, due to heat exhaustion, heat stroke, I guess died after collapsing from heat stroke, is technically what, at least this article that I'm reading here, it was a heat stroke. Put two and two together, don't put two and two together. I don't, you don't, but maybe. We obviously, weren't there. We don't know exactly what caused this. But to talk about the conditioning coach, strength and conditioning coach, I don't know, Troy, I mean, if you as a university, as an AD, whatever, think that this coach is completely in the wrong and aided in bullying, then why don't you just resign? Otherwise we'll fire you. Why don't you just fire him? If you're like that hell-bent on it, that this coach is terrible and you're going to fire him because of X, Y, and Z, why not fire him? Like, do you think that's just a PR thing where it's like, oh, Maryland's bad because they fired someone? Do you think Maryland looks better because a coach resigns instead? I never really understood that.
Well, I'll use my, I guess, wealth of business world experience, Kevin, and management experience. There are times when the writing's on the wall, and you'll be there and you know that you're not meeting your expectations, performance plans are not being met. And on a resume, it looks a lot better when you're going into the world of business saying that you resigned from a position rather than getting fired. That is really, to me, the only reason that Maryland let them do that. Now, here's the kicker. I'm talking about, in management of my prior experience. And we're talking sales jobs, recruiting jobs, different things where jobs are common. This guy's a strength and conditioning coach, and his name is now associated with this. It doesn't matter if he resigned or got fired. He's going to have one heck of a time finding a job anywhere. So his job is a little more high profile than the people I was working with. But you know what, youngster? I was in the same situation in management where I'd either have to put my fist on and fire someone, and I just talk to them. Some people, if you care about them and you kind of want to maybe see them, hey, you're not working out with us, but I really don't want to just put this, mark on your resume, I'll give you the option. But it's going to come down to two things. In 2 weeks, you're either going to have to resign and walk out the door, or we're going to have to terminate your employment. So, people see the writing on the wall, youngster, and I think a lot of times they give them that option so it just looks better from the I guess, employee standpoint when they go out job searching, hey, I resigned. But a lot of times you've got to explain why you resigned. But on paper, I guess it can help. So if maybe Maryland was being nice about it, but in a situation like this, I don't know why you're being nice about it.
Right. That's my
thing.
That's my thing. It's like, why be nice about it? Why let him potentially look better on a resume if you think he's completely in the wrong, obviously? I don't know. I don't get that. I guess if I'm an AD and I know that a staffer has done something completely unethical or whatever, and it's like, okay, then you're fired. Like, why would I want you to look better? I don't know.
I guess the other point, youngster, is maybe they didn't have, undisputable proof.
Maybe
it was just allegations. Maybe it was just, rumor. Maybe they didn't have hard proof where if they actually fired him because of that he could fight it and say, hey, where's the proof? When did I do it? And so maybe where from Maryland's standpoint, it was like, hey, we've got these allegations. We're ready to investigate the allegations. So we're going to give you a choice. We're either going to start an investigation or you can resign. So, I mean, I don't know. Again, you and I aren't there. We're not flies on the wall in that Maryland athletic department. But as you were talking, that came to mind, like, I wonder why. It could have been that they didn't have that proof where if he fought it, that they could just throw it back in his face and say, we got the proof right here.
Right.
Maybe it was just hearsay. Maybe it was just rumor. Maybe it was a couple of statements by players that were not verified or confirmed. We don't know, again, youngster, but it brings up a really good point, and you're not off base on being confused about resigning when they could have just fired him.
Yeah. No, you brought up, I think I didn't even think about it, and that's probably exactly why they did it, is that if you don't have a reasonable cause to fire someone, there are some companies, one that I work for, you have to have, it's something ridiculous. You have to have, basically you have to, steal from the store. I'm talking about my morning stock job here. You have to steal from the store. You have to be written up, 3 times. You have to be late 9 times. I'm not kidding. You literally have to be late 9 times. If you're late 8 times, that's okay. If you're late a 9th time, then you can get fired. So there has to be...
What does this world come to?
Right. There has to be a legitimate reason.
9 times?
Yeah, I think the number's literally 9. If it's not 9, it's 8. It's something ridiculous. Geez. It's not even 10. Hey, you were late 10 times. Okay, that's 10. Nice, even number. The world understands 10. No, you were late 9 times, so now you're fired. It's what? I don't understand it. Anyway, like you said, you probably have to have a legitimate, reasonable cause with, to fire someone like that. As far as, again, going back to the whole bullying thing and the coach, I don't know, again, if it was DJ Durkin, the head coach, or the strength and conditioning coach, or multiple coaches, assistant coach, whatever it is, throwing weights at players, making players try to gain weight for football reasons, but then forcing them to keep eating until they puke, making fun of a player. I saw this, making fun of a player when they fainted, collapsed. I don't know if it was on the practice field. And then afterwards, they basically made fun of them. The coaching staff did. Again, I don't know if it's one coach. I don't know if it's 7, the whole coaching staff, whatever it is. But that's just what I've heard. Again, my limited knowledge, unfortunately, but that's what I've heard about this bullying stuff. Obviously, that's ridiculous. And if all of it, comes to fruition that, hey, the head coach did this, the strength and conditioning coach did this, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, recruiting, whatever. If you're a part of that, yes, you should be fired. Absolutely, 100%. This whole heat stroke death thing, again, Troy and I, we both believe that they're separate, but again, we don't know for sure. The player's name, by the way, Jordan McNair, I believe he was an offensive lineman, I think. Again, had a heat stroke on the practice field. School is accepting full responsibility, launched an investigation, admitted that the coaching staff failed to follow emergency protocols. So the school, the coaching staff is all basically taking heat for it, and they're all understanding that, hey, we should be taking heat for this. Durkin's been suspended. Again, strength and conditioning coach Rick Court has resigned. That's basically all I know on the subject. But, yeah, I mean, I know that, Troy, you've got a story for listeners to hear about, which I think is interesting. I love your coaching knowledge, stories, stuff that you pull from your coaching days. I love it all. But so as a whole, I mean, I'll say this. I'll keep my point short here. I think that you can be age 6, you can be age 16, 26, 36, and you can have a heat stroke. I don't think that's absurd. Again, if you're pushing players in 95-degree heat to never drink water, Gatorade, anything for 3 hours, doing 2-a-days, whatever, then okay, that should be looked into. That's stupid is what that is. But if it's just a matter of a guy having a heat stroke, that can happen to anybody at any time. Again, we weren't there. We don't know. I'm sure there will be reports from other players saying, yada, 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 on this day when this happened. Again, I don't know any of that at this second as we're recording this. What is it, August 21st? But I'm sure more details will come out. I just want to say that having a heat stroke on a practice field, that this isn't the first, second, or 10th time I've heard of it. It's probably the 100th. It can happen. And growing up in Florida as a kid, doing a bunch of, recreation league practices, games, AAU practices, games, traveling up the state and doing all these practices and games in, basically 100-degree weather, in terms of a heat index, sometimes 105, 110. Anything is possible to collapse, have a heat stroke, whatever, because of the heat. But, again, if the coaching staff is aiding in this and not following, like they said, they already admitted they did not follow emergency protocols in terms of potentially saving his life. That's serious stuff. And so, to me, if the coaching staff and DJ Durkin, the head coach, has admitted that he didn't do what he could to save this player's life, I don't know. I don't know how you don't fire someone for that. But, again, something like this can happen to anyone due to the type of heat that they were practicing in. But, again, my final point is that, if the coaching staff aided this in anything whatsoever, then obviously stuff is not going well at Maryland. Whether it's bullying, whether it's this kid dying, unfortunately, it's all unfortunate. But if the coaching staff aided in any of it, fire him. That's my bottom line. But Troy, I know you've got a more firsthand account on this type of stuff.
Yeah, but you're right on, youngster. If the protocols were followed and the coaching staff, and we already know that they didn't. It was like 2 hours after this happened where 911 was finally called. Now, here's where the gray area comes in. Were there any trainers involved? Were there any medical personnel at the university involved? I don't know. I've been looking and trying to get stuff because there's two things involved in this whole incident. The bullying part, Kevin, I'm working here on a nonprofit that's going to raise bullying awareness. I'm trying to get that started. So that hits home. And then I was a college coach. So that hits home. So this incident is very tragic. But you said it so eloquently. I love using that word when you talk. I really do. It can happen to anybody that plays athletics in heat. What I'm doing here, and I want the listeners to understand where I'm going to come from in the next 5, 6, 7 minutes, is from a perspective of going down the middle. I'm not placing blame on one end or not placing blame on another end. But I want to give an account of what happens in August training camp. You mentioned 2-a-days, Kevin. When I coached, depending on the team that I had and depending on their fitness level, there were some days I went 3 times a day. Now, it wasn't all field work and it wasn't all conditioning. Some of it was film work. But I went to 3-a-days for some weeks because of time. Now, again, in the NCAA, you can only practice so many hours a day. So we sat down and said, how do we do 3 practices a day? We have to cut some from the morning, cut some from the evening, and then we can do a middle afternoon after lunch session, which was usually light. Never usually involved any conditioning. But, again, it's a practice time. Getting back to the incident, I wanted to share the story. I shared it on our Saturday show. And if you want to hear Saturday's show in that account, folks, feel free. Find us on Twitter at TroyRobert967. You can find the link to the archive. It is out there and posted. But, Kevin, when I was coaching college and in this August heat in the Midwest, it is humid. And you went to the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. Humid. Just humid. And it is hot. And as a coach, you have to recognize these things. You have to recognize where is the conditioning, how much can I do, how much can I not do, and where do I draw the line. So I want to go back, and I want to full circle this because when I started coaching college, I was a young kid, 31 years old. That's it. I was young. I was a young pup in charge of a college program. And the off-season workout that we gave these kids, it was meant to have them prepared to come in on day 1 of camp and continue with that program. It wasn't just, hey, if you want to do this in the off season, go ahead and do it. No, the program was set up, Kevin, from the day they left campus. I gave them a week break, and it literally broke down every day what they needed to be doing because when they came to camp, we were taking and jumping and running right from that point. And I shared on the show, I was a college athlete one time. And in my younger days in college, freshman, sophomore. I'm like, I'll do it next week. I'll start next week. By the time you know it, you got 3 weeks to get ready from a 2-month conditioning program. Do you know how hard that is? You know how hard you have to push your body? And when you start pushing your body to extremes on your own, bad things can happen. If you follow an off-season workout program and you go day by day and you gradually build up your tolerance and you gradually build up where your conditioning level is, coming in on day one of camp should be a breeze. Now, again, I'm not taking the side of anyone here, but did this kid continue and do the off-season workout program to the T? I would say this, Kevin, I know from coaching and playing, maybe a quarter of the team did that off-season workout conditioning. So here's a little secret. As a coach, we knew that only a quarter of them probably did it to the T. We scaled back day one, not to scare them to think, hey, whoa, yeah, this is – and a lot of them probably figured it out when they were in the program after 2 or 3 years. We went back about 2 weeks, Kevin, 2.5 weeks to where the off-season conditioning program was, because as coaches, we're like, did we ever start on day one? No. Did we ever start on week 1? No. Usually it was week 2 or week 3. So we went back 2 weeks. That's where we wanted them to be conditioned, and that's how we built the program. We built the program knowing they probably wouldn't do it to completion. So that is one thing. You need to come to camp in college, and you need to be in shape. Because if you're trying to get yourself into shape in 90-degree weather and humid weather, you're going to put a big strain on your body. I want to share the story, and I didn't give you all the details. When I was coaching, Kevin, we ran practice. And then all of a sudden, actually, before I get to that, I want to give another point. I'm sorry. I can just ramble on. When we did our conditioning practices in the morning, they were in, they were done, we'd leave the field. And I was thinking back, and I shared this on Saturday. In lieu of what happened at Maryland, I would have guys, Kevin, that were team players that had good work ethic, that worked hard, that would stay after the morning conditioning, and they'd go run hills, they'd go to the track, and they'd run laps. And as a young coach, my thought was, man, these guys are dedicated. Look how hard they're working. They really want this team to do well. I look back today and say, what was I doing? I should have pulled them off the field, because if anything happened to them at that point, I was in charge of that program. Now, nothing bad happened because of that, but I'm thinking back, holy cow. I don't want to say I even turned a blind eye. I knew what they were doing. I should have yanked them off the field and said, hey, we did enough in practice. You don't need to do any extra. But to me, I was looking at it going, man, these kids are dedicated. They really want the team to do well. Wrong. They shouldn't have done that. Coaches know what they're doing, at least a lot of them. So my point, though, Kevin, is in 1 year in training camp, and it was a hot summer, very hot. One of those summers where we actually sometimes had to condition in the gym or on the turf field because it was so hot outside. We tried to go early in the morning, and it was just one of those summers where the humidity was already out at 7 a.m., and you were just dripping sweat when you walk out of the gymnasium. I had a player, I got a phone call 9 o'clock at night, and I'm not going to mention names, but so-and-so is being rushed to the hospital. And that's all I heard. They didn't tell me why. And I got in my car and I went to the hospital. I lived 10 minutes away from the hospital. Got to the hospital, went in the room, and the player was suffering from heat exhaustion. Now, luckily, he got medical attention, stayed in the hospital a few days, and was better. But, man, he was on fluids, Kevin, for 2 days. Couldn't hold down food, had to get fed intravenously, and they were just cranking fluids in him. And I shared this with you. If something to the extreme of what happened at Maryland would have happened to him, I would have looked back and said, okay, what did I do wrong? But as a coach, Kevin, I really didn't do anything wrong. I put him through a conditioning program. They had water breaks. We didn't overdo it. We didn't keep them out there. We were watching those levels. This was one of those situations, circling back to what you said, everybody's body reacts differently. But as a coach, I didn't do anything out of the norm for this kid to be put in that situation other than it was hot out. So I wouldn't have, when I looked at it, and if it would have been tragic, yeah, I would have felt terrible. It was under my watch, and I don't want to sound cold-hearted, but we're looking at some facts. Did I do anything out of the ordinary that caused that? And the answer is no, I didn't. I put him through a workout. Now, as a coach, Kevin, after that happened, my trainer sat down with me, and I gave props to the trainer on Saturday. When I coached, my training staff was A+. And I don't care if you're a trainer at a D3, a D2, or D1 in NAIA school. Trainers are certified nationally, Kevin. And I don't care what school you're at. If you have a good training staff, you have a good training staff. If you have a piss-poor training staff, you have a piss-poor training staff. Mine was A+. I trusted everything out of my trainer's mouth. He said a player can't go, a player can't go. Not even going to debate it. Not even going to try. He said no, fine. My point to this is my player got out of the hospital in 2 days. He wanted to step right on the field. Trainer said, no way. Not happening. He's not stepping on that field for at least 2 more days.
Yeah.
I said, that's it. Fine. 2 more days. So after that, though, we actually implemented a rule in our camp, and it was kind of an honor system. If you felt dizzy, if you felt parched, if you needed a drink, excuse yourself from a drill, go get a drink, and come back to the drill without causing distraction amongst everybody. That was my trainer's idea. And I looked at him and said, man, you're going to open up a can of worms in my practice. I like the idea, but, man, they're just going to take full advantage of this. They're going to just be going to the watering hole. They're going to go to the buckets. They're going to go there like every 10 minutes. But I'll tell you what, Kevin, sometimes you got to have faith in your players, and we implemented the rule for a reason. And our situation wasn't even a death. It was just a player being in a hospital for 2 days.
Yeah.
It really hit the players hard, and none of them took advantage of it. Players went. They did. They utilized it. They would exit from the field, but then they got right back in the drill. They didn't go over there. It wasn't social hour. They went. They got a drink, put water on their head, sat under the tent for a couple minutes, got back in practice. Also, and I said this on the show, this sounds gross, very gross. The trainer had each of my players examine their urine every time they went to the bathroom. And the trainer basically told them, Kevin, you need to be peeing white. If it is any color but white, you are not ready to step on the practice field.
Right.
And, I couldn't go in there and watch the guy pee. That's not acceptable, right? But we asked the players, in lieu of what happened, to really pay attention to it. And if you are not peeing white, drink water and drink a ton of water. And I actually, at that point, Kevin, from a team perspective and a training perspective, figured out how to through the cafeteria that didn't violate NCAA rules, how to get access to bottled water as part of the program. So we wanted them to be hydrated, and we helped them to do that, but it was like, hey, I told the players, when I see you out of this facility, you should have a bottle of water in your hand. That's how serious I took that, Kevin, and it wasn't even a death. And I'm sorry that I rambled on, and I hope I didn't lose any listeners. But that story to me, Kevin, when this happened at Maryland, reminded me of that situation immediately and how much that could have been a situation similar. Luckily for me, we had a great training staff. My player, and I actually should have said this before they called 911, he actually talked to the trainer. And the trainer immediately had him call 911. And it kind of circles back to Maryland, what was this training staff doing?
Right.
So not only to me are the coaches somewhat held liable for this, what did the training staff do?
Yeah.
If it was 2 hours, did nobody send him to a trainer? That's why you have these trainers that are certified nationally. They're there to take care of injuries, and if they didn't know how to do it, then they should be held liable too. That's all I got, Kevin. I know I rambled for a while, but I thought that story very relevant to what happened at Maryland, but that's all I got on that situation. So, again, I'm not blaming 100% on the coach. If he followed protocol, the bullying stuff aside, I don't care about that. It comes down to this kid and what happened with the conditioning. If bullying was part of the conditioning, yeah, get his ass out of there. Sorry for swearing. But if the coach did a normal practice and they went through conditioning drills and this happened, I don't want to say, oh, I'm sorry, it's unfortunate. It's still tragic. But you can't hold a coach liable at that point if everything was followed in what he did. But if there's other things in there that we don't know about, bullying, no water, not calling 911, yeah, then you know what? If the coach knew about all that stuff, get him out of there.
Right.
But I wanted to come from a coach's perspective because I was there, Kevin. Again, not to this extreme, but pretty darn close. We're talking about hospitalization for 2 days on a player. And that's about as close as you can get to this tragic event. I'm done. I'm going to let you take over.
Yeah, I've got nothing else to add. We beat that into the drum for sure for over half an hour now. You brought up the peeing white thing, and I think that if you're not an athlete who has played at a decent level, you probably don't know, and you probably think it may be weird that, like, hey, you should be peeing white, or if you randomly pee and it's, like, clear, then you're like, what? Why is my pee not yellow? Because usually pee is yellow. But if you're that hydrated, if you're legitimately hydrated like a human being should be, you should be peeing clear, basically. That's something I know. That's something you brought up, and I had to laugh at it because I think that if you're not from an athletic background whatsoever and you're just, a fan who loves Northwestern football, that's awesome. Welcome, to the show. Welcome back to the show, whatever it is. But peeing clear, that's just a sign of being hydrated, basically. Anyway, to move on to the whole Urban Meyer thing again, over the last week, I have not really heard anything. I know that today there is a scheduled press conference. I don't know exactly what time that is. I don't know what's coming from that. But I think the hearing for Ohio State is Wednesday as to, is Urban Meyer fired? Is Urban Meyer coming back with no repercussions? Is Urban Meyer being suspended? You said, Troy, to me before the show that the latest rumor is that he's going to be suspended. I don't think Troy, supposedly how long the suspension could be. I guess I could look stuff up right now.
Nope, didn't hear any of that. And like I said, it's all rumor.
Yeah.
I have no hard facts like, oh, this college football reporter so-and-so has inside information. It's just rumor. Maybe they dropped the bomb and they're going to fire him. I don't know, but the rumor is it's going to come down as a suspension. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that and what you think if it's a suspension, youngster, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because the press conference didn't happen. We'll spend a lot more time on it next week when we know exactly how it went down. But our show is airing this week before it happens. If it's a suspension, Kevin, and not a firing, how long do you think that they should suspend Urban Meyer for?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's kind of stupid. I think why we talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, that morally Urban Meyer did the wrong thing. He should have done more in regard to Zach Smith and basically the reports coming out that he was beating his girlfriend at the time. I think it was his girlfriend, not his wife at the time. It might have been his ex-wife. I don't remember the specifics on it. But regardless, Urban Meyer should have done more other than just, hey, athletic director, these charges have been filed. If you're that close to him, if you're a family friend and you know his godfather, great uncle, whatever it was, who mentored Urban Meyer years ago, these two had a connection for sure. Beyond just, hey, you're my cool assistant coach. It was a lot more than that for these two, Zach Smith, Urban Meyer. But he should have done something more on the matter. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. You can check that out at thegruelingtruth.net. You can check that out. Our Twitter handle is @youngsteroldman. It feels good saying that stuff again, Troy, because it seems like forever since I've said that. In any case, Urban Meyer should have done more. And so why suspend him? Either he should be fired, which I think the majority of people believe is true, and me, myself, I am, honestly, my top college football rooting interest is Ohio State. And I think Urban Meyer should be fired because he should have done more, at the least. He should have done more. That's my conclusion. Even if we went to the athletic director with all the information he knew, he should have done more, realistically. Joe Paterno should have done more. People at Michigan State should have done more with Larry Nassar. People should have done more. You know, it shouldn't have to wait 5 years, 10 years, 35 years after the fact of someone doing something terrible, you know? So for me, Urban Meyer should be fired. And so I don't get it. The likely recommendation from the board is a suspension for Meyer. That's what the Columbus Dispatch has reported a day ago.
And you know why that is, youngster? And now you got me worked up because you and I are in the same boat. We brought it up on our show. Whatever this investigation rears out, Urban Meyer as a person screwed up.
Right.
And all this comes down to, if that's going to be the board's recommendation, I'm going to say this, Kevin. You root for Ohio State. I'm a Big Ten fan, but I don't care if it's Ohio State. I wouldn't care if this was a Wisconsin thing. I'd say the same thing. That's a bunch of BS. It's all about money. If you're going to suspend him, it's all about money and winning. Because you need to look at this from the standpoint, again, what happened in Maryland, they took responsibility. They went on and apologized. It happened under their watch. You're putting your kid in our care, and now we're going to investigate, and there's going to be consequences. But I wanted to share the facts of a coach, but it comes down to the Urban Meyer thing, Kevin. This guy was abusing his wife. He was hitting her. As a person, how do you let that happen? And now you're going to entrust Urban Meyer to be a role model and a coach for all of these kids and say, oh, I hope you learned your lesson. No, he didn't learn his lesson. He didn't do anything. And if he did report it, he sat on his hands and let it happen. He didn't tell him to go get help. He didn't try to make the situation better. Oh, I did my obligation. I reported the fact. BS to me, Kevin. If it's a suspension from this press conference, I'm going to be up in arms because I'm like you. He should be fired because this is a guy that he recommended to be on his staff. He knew it was going on. It happened in Florida. You brought him with you to Ohio State.
Yep.
That's all I got. I'm not even going to say anything else. You can finish it up and move into the preview because I need to talk about something good right now because I'm driving and I'm hot. And I'm thirsty after you got me all worked up, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, either he should be fired because Ohio State believes that he did wrong, or there should be no consequences if you thought he did everything perfectly. I don't get the suspension part, I guess. Should he be suspended 2 games, 4 games, 6 games, 8 games, 1 game, 1 half, 4 halves, 5 halves? It's stupid to me. It's not like a marijuana thing where it's like, hey, the entire country is going to legalize marijuana eventually. But you know what? We're still against it. This state is still illegal. You're suspended for the first half. You're suspended for 1 game, whatever it is.
Okay, I got to chime in again, Kevin. If it's a suspension, and I got to relate this to listeners, how many listeners that are listening in right now have kids? Did you ever put your kid in a timeout? Did the kid learn from the timeout? How many timeouts you got to put that kid in before they learn their lesson? Giving Urban Meyer suspension to me is like a timeout for a 5-year-old, Kevin. That's what it is to me. And I know that I'm not comparing apples to apples, but kind of I am. Because that's what a suspension is for Urban Meyer. It's a timeout. Hey, you can't coach. Go stand in the corner. And you can't be around the team. Is he really going to learn? And what is the situation? I hope he doesn't have to learn, Kevin. I hope he's not in this situation again where he's hiring somebody that's going to abuse his wife.
Right.
My gosh, a suspension is like putting a 5-year-old in a timeout. Is he going to learn from it? What's there to learn? What is a suspension going to do to a college football coach who didn't morally do the right thing in an abuse situation? Is he really going to learn anything, youngster? I'm done. I'm not even interrupting until we get to the preview. I got to get there. I'm getting a drink.
This show is going to be a longer one. But in any case, I want to start with this. We'll move on to our previews here. Let me get my little handy-dandy marking in here. So Michigan, we're going to start talking about them 45 minutes into the show. Okay, so sixth best team. Troy and I talked about the bottom 7 teams. Is that right? No, bottom 8 teams. Bottom 8 teams of the conference 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And now that I'm back and a married man, we're going to be talking about the next 4 teams in this conference. The number 6 team from a year ago. Not talking about the AP poll, which I'll bring up in a second just to gloss over. We know Troy's thoughts on the AP poll in the preseason. It's stupid. My thought is that it means something. It's something to look at because it does unfortunately matter. It shouldn't, but it does matter. It does based on where teams are ranked and how far you have to climb, so to say, to get to the top 4. It unfortunately does matter. So I will bring it up. I'll gloss over it. But the teams we're talking about today in terms of Big Ten preview for the 2018 season, Michigan finished 6th in the conference a year ago. Northwestern was 5th, interchangeably with Michigan State, who I just put in as 4, and then Penn State at 3. And then next week on, August 27th, because next weekend, not this coming weekend, but next weekend is when college football starts for the 2018 season. Next weekend. So not even 14 days away from the 2018 college football season beginning, which is awesome.
Now that makes me happy, youngster. Now I'm all ready to rock and roll. I'm not all worked up any. Now I'm worked up into happiness. Happiness okay. Worked up for college football.
Good, as you should be. But so we're wrapping up next week with previewing Wisconsin and Ohio State, the top 2 teams from last year in this conference. But teams 3 through 6, like I mentioned, Michigan, Northwestern, Michigan State, Penn State, I was able to do a little bit of note jotting during this show. So, again, not as prepared as I would like to be, but I've got some notes. In any case, Michigan, first, before Michigan, AP Top 25 poll came out. Like you said, Troy, to start the show, 5 of the top 14 teams are in the Big Ten. That's absurd. That's why I've said that this is the best conference in college football the last 2 years now. Whether Alabama and Georgia meet in a title game, that's phenomenal. And let's say Alabama and Georgia last year were the top 2 teams in the country. Okay, that doesn't mean the SEC is the best conference in the country. That means you have the 2 top teams in the country in your conference, which is awesome. That's unbelievable. Fantastic. Congrats to the SEC. But in terms of top depth, middle depth, even the bottom, I like the Big Ten over any other conference. You can say the top 2 from the SEC beats out the Big Ten's top 2, beats out any conference's top 2. Sure, I'll give you that for sure. But as a conference as a whole, I would take the Big Ten over anyone. And don't get me started with bowl records, because a year ago the Big Ten was like 8-1, 9-1, whatever it was, and bowl record. That means absolutely nothing to me. Bowl record means nothing to me. But in any case, top 25 poll, Alabama number 1, Clemson number 2, Georgia number 3. What do you know with those 3 teams now? But I thought this was interesting. The AP has Wisconsin at number 4. That's higher than I thought. Ohio State at 5 seems reasonable. Washington, Oklahoma, Miami, Auburn round out the top 10. Gee, what do you know? Washington, Oklahoma, Miami, Auburn. Miami's getting better. I'll say that. Auburn has its years. This is going to be one of those years where they're good. Penn State, that rounded out the top 9. Penn State is 10. Michigan State's 11. Again, 2 more Big Ten teams in there. 4 of the top 11 teams in the country, according to the AP, are from the Big Ten. And then Michigan at 14. I think that you notice a trend, though, and I think this is it's, I guess, noteworthy to me and should be noteworthy to college football fans of your Northwesterns and Purdue's and Indiana's and Illinois' and even your Iowa's. Sometimes once every 5 years or so, you're going to have that year where it's like, my God, we should go 10-2. We have a possibility to go 11-1, go into the Big Ten championship and pull off an upset, and boom, we're 12-1. We should be in the college football playoff. You're going to have those years once in a while. But seriously, just reading down this list again, I just mentioned basically the top 14, but Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington, Oklahoma, Miami, Auburn, Penn State, Tell me when there's a surprise here. Michigan State, Notre Dame, Stanford, Michigan, USC, TCU, West Virginia, Mississippi State, Florida State, Virginia Tech. Oh, there's an interesting one. Number 21 is UCF, who was perfect a year ago. And then you got Boise State, Texas, Oregon, LSU. That's your whole top 25. It's like who's missing in the top 25 that it's like, hey, you should take out LSU. They're not a top 25 team. Take out Texas. Take out Boise State. Take out Florida State. Take out TCU, USC. It's like it's all the same. And there's rarely ever a change. I mean, year after year after year after year, it's like some years TCU is going to be better than other years. Some years Auburn's in the top 10. Sometimes they're not. But it's like it's almost always the same. Am I wrong in that thinking, Troy, that it's like, hey, Illinois is number 13 this year. Hey, look, Purdue's there. Oh, look, Western Kentucky's number 17 going into the season. It never happens. It's always just the same 30, 35 programs that make up the top 5.
Yeah, and it's like you basically, there's going to be those teams that are always in the top 10, and it's based on tradition. It's based on winning and losing. It's based on recruiting classes. Like you, Kevin, and we're going to talk about Wisconsin next week. I'm a Badger fan through and through. You know that. I root for the red and white every Saturday and every game that they're on. Number 4 to me surprised me. It surprised me. Got a lot of guys returning, but it surprised me that they were 4th. I thought that they would crack the top 10.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be more like 8, 9, somewhere in there. But, again, it goes to show maybe some respect that Paul Chryst gained with that team last year. And I know we'll talk more in depth next week. But a quick thought on that. They have average quarterback play. And with an average quarterback, look what Paul Chryst did during the regular season. Granted, the schedule was kind of cupcakey, but you don't apologize for what your schedule is. That's the way that it rolls out. And they won. They took care of business every week. They lost the game that mattered to Ohio State, but he did a heck of a job, and they got some respect. And I think a lot of that, Kevin, though, goes to the conference. We looked at it and said, yeah, probably a pretty weak conference schedule. But like you said, Kevin, top to bottom in the Big Ten, look what Iowa did to Ohio State. You have to play football every Saturday. You can't go out and hope your skill is going to be better than a bad team because that bad team wants to play in the Big Ten. And those bad teams in the Big Ten, they can pull off upsets. Look what Rutgers did, Kevin. I mean, they won games in the Big Ten. We talked about them on the last show before you left. Teams in the Big Ten, top to bottom, can pull off wins, and they're going to play you tough. So, to me, Wisconsin at 4 was a surprise. Ohio State at 5, not a surprise. I figured they'd be up near the top. Penn State, I figured, would drop a little bit. Where they're at, I'm okay with that. Michigan State, a little bit of a surprise to me, Kevin, as to where they're at. And not from the standpoint, we're going to talk about them today, not from the standpoint that they're in the top 25, because I think they're going to be much better this year. Fire D'Antonio! I had to do it. I had to because they were calling for his head last year.
Yep.
They're going to be much better. But 11, getting much respect. And Michigan, transfer quarterback, we're going to talk about them today, cracking the 14. Actually, to me, I thought they might be a little higher. I thought maybe they'd be where Michigan State was. But they did lose a lot defensively. And offensively, they weren't great, but they got a new quarterback. My point here, the Big Ten has earned respect, in my mind, with people across the country. And I think part of it is, Kevin, I know you don't want to hear it, thank Iowa. Thank Iowa for beating an Ohio State, a team that was in middle to lower than middle of the pack. Think of Rutgers for going out and playing a Penn State really, really tough, and Rutgers getting a couple wins. You want to thank, when I see this, Kevin, when I see 5 teams in the top 14, you got to give credit where credit is due. Yeah, 5 great programs. But what about the other 9? What about the other 9 programs that push them to play football every week? I'm arguing your case that the Big Ten is the best football conference. I'm giving credit to the 9 other teams that didn't crack the top 14, because those 9 other teams make those 5 teams prepare and play well every week. And those 9 other teams can beat any of these 5 on any given Saturday. Take it away, youngster.
Yeah. Wisconsin was perfect a year ago, beat Miami at Miami. Again, it's a bowl game, so throw it out the window. But they beat a top 10 team in their backyard. They proved they could belong and compete with anyone. They lost to Ohio State. And Iowa, the 7th team from the Big Ten a year ago, beat Ohio State by 31 points. I mean, so you can't count out Iowa. Purdue won 4 games in the conference. Nebraska only won 3, but it's like, hey, it's Nebraska. It's Scott Frost. Bring in a great recruiting class or 2. Hey, look, they're a top 25 team. Rutgers was 3-6 in the Big Ten a year ago. They won 4 games. It's like, okay, that's not atrocious. You know, Minnesota had its 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. I'm thinking of Maryland. Minnesota was atrocious in a number of categories. Still went 5-7. Indiana, I thought they were going to at least go to a bowl game. They disappointed. Indiana disappointed and went 5-7. Maryland went onto their 4th-string quarterback. Still won 4 games. It wasn't atrocious. Illinois was terrible last year. That's fine. If you look at the bottom of any conference, that team's going to be terrible. That's any conference. But yeah, Big Ten to me, top to bottom, second to none in my mind. We will finally start talking about Michigan here. So Michigan a year ago, and this was, let me see here. This is Jim Harbaugh has been in Michigan for 3 years, 28-11 in those 3 years, and to some people that's atrocious, not getting it done, not beating Michigan State, not beating Ohio State. What are you doing? Yet at the same time, it's like if you look back at some of these games where a blocked punt for a touchdown sways a game completely, for Michigan State to beat Michigan, Ohio State had a spotting call, basically allow Ohio State to beat Michigan. There are a couple games, seesaw games here and there. You could see Michigan in a college football playoff just based on a couple calls going the correct way, or a punt not being blocked into the end zone and being recovered for 7 points for Michigan State. I think that there is too much hate on Jim Harbaugh. I will say this, though, that this team a year ago, 8-5, 5-4 in the Big Ten, nothing spectacular, still had the number 1 passing defense in the country, still had the number 3 total defense in the country, number 13 scoring defense, number 18 rush defense. They're always great defensively nowadays. That's just to be expected for Michigan. And they returned 6 guys offensively, 8 defensively. Guys like Rashawn Gary, who could be a top 5 pick, could be the number 1 overall pick if there's no standout quarterback. The entire secondary returns from, again, the number 1 pass defense in the country a year ago, the entire secondary. The top 2 corners, free safety, strong safety, all returned. The defense is going to be really good. The offense was very average to bad a year ago, like very bad in certain categories, but you bring in a transfer quarterback who's a junior now, who was the number 1 quarterback recruit 3 years ago. And it's by far Jim Harbaugh's best quarterback at Michigan, easily the best quarterback he's had since Luck, and we know what he did with Luck. And we know what he did with Colin Kaepernick in the NFL, get to a Super Bowl and almost win it. So I think if he's at Michigan with a great defense, with a more than capable quarterback, I think Michigan's going to be very good and turn things around. But at the same time, so again, the whole offense revolves around Shea Patterson and what he can do. I think you're going to see a big jump for Michigan's offense this year. Defensively, like I said, a number of guys return. Studs in the secondary and defensive line especially. The schedule to me is somewhat interesting because they play at Notre Dame. I think that's week 1, isn't it? Yes, it is, September 1st. They play at Notre Dame. They're favored by, I think it's 1.5, but it's at Notre Dame. It's a top 15 whatever game for both teams according to the AP. It's going to be a tough game because Notre Dame is talented. Credit
I don't
to Michigan.
like that as the first game, Kevin. I don't mean to interrupt. I don't like that Michigan-Notre Dame rival game as the first game of the year. I want to see those two play late in the year when they've been battle-tested. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I understand that it's a lure. Hey, we're going to kick off the college football season. But you got two really good historic programs, tradition on both sides. And normally, I mean, it's one of those games, it's almost like the Packers and Bears. Throw the records out. Those two teams dislike each other, and they're going to play a really good football game. I don't like it being week 1. I wish it was like week 9 or something like that. I just wanted to throw that out there. My displeasure with that being the opener for Michigan.
You should throw that game right before Ohio State so that Ohio State kind of has potentially an easier road there. Jokes aside, seriously, I credit to Michigan for playing Notre Dame. Credit to any Big Ten team who goes out and at least plays a Power 5 school in the non-conference. Seriously, because there are teams that don't. I believe that Iowa is one of them. But in any case, not to throw garbage at Iowa, I give credit to teams that at least play a Power 5 opponent somewhere, one of its 3 games in the non-conference. Just play a Colorado, play a Utah, play a Texas A&M, play a Notre Dame, play an LSU, play a Arizona State, whatever. Play someone interesting to help you at least propel you into the Big Ten season. Somehow, some way. I give respect to Michigan in that regard that they usually play someone. So hats off to them for doing that. To finish out their schedule here, on the road this year in the Big Ten, at Northwestern, at Michigan State, at Ohio State. At home, you get Wisconsin, you get Penn State, you get Nebraska. There's a lot of losable games in there. So this team could take a big step up, still lose 3 games, and it's like, well, what happened? You went 9-3. You finished 6-3 in the Big Ten. But in the end, it's like, okay, great, you're playing January 1st in the Outback Bowl. And people will say, what is wrong with Jim Harbaugh? He couldn't get it done. You finally had a quarterback. What happened? Sometimes it's just on the schedule, unfortunately. If they surpass that, if they're in the Big Ten title game, you're not going to hear anything negative about Jim Harbaugh anymore. Because the schedule is tough, and for most of these teams, like we've said for the last few weeks now, it's very hard to get a favorable schedule in the Big Ten. You can get a favorable one, I should say, but there are no easy schedules in the Big Ten. Because even the middle guys like Iowa can beat you by 30, which Ohio State experienced a year ago. I say it basically every single week. So this schedule for Michigan is tough, especially when you include at Notre Dame week 1. But if they're anywhere close to the Big Ten title game at the end of the season, Jim Harbaugh did a great job. Shea Patterson is obviously working at quarterback. The defense is obviously great. They're going to have, I think, 7 here notable games to keep your eyes on. So Michigan will be exciting one way or another throughout this entire season. Again, we're not giving full predictions as to what these teams will finish, but that schedule is very tough. I'll say that at the least.
Oh, it's a bear. It's a bear, and you mentioned there's a lot of losable games, but if you look at Michigan, and you mentioned it, what was it, Kevin, 14 of 22 starters back, 8 on defense, 6 on offense.
Yeah.
My only concern is, well, I'm not even going to say it's a concern because Jim Harbaugh is a good recruiter, and the guys that were causing havoc on the quarterbacks last year, that's where that secondary really was able to pounce. Why did they have the best passing defense in the nation? Because they could pressure the quarterback. And I'm sure there's guys that were behind the guys from last year that are ready to step in and do the same thing. That defense is going to be tough. And I know that you and I were even a little bit critical of Michigan. Like, how can you give up so many points to so-and-so? And, man, you look how many yards you gave up to Rutgers. Part of it was, though, Kevin, that offense was so inept last year that we talked about. That time of possession, when you can't move the chains and you're punting it after a 3-and-out, that defense is getting worn out. If you look at now bringing in Patterson, And if he is everything that he's supposed to be, and all of a sudden your offense can sustain drives and that defense can rest for, in real time, 15 minutes, oh my, Kevin. Yeah. I think part of the problem defensively last year when they had their lulls, it's because the offense couldn't do crap. 3 and out, 1 first down, so a 6-play drive, and then punt the ball back. Bad field position, putting the defense in bad situations. You want to look at that Wisconsin team, and I know I'm going back to them, but I think it's a good team to kind of compare them to. That Wisconsin defense, very skilled, very good. And I know that I'm probably one of Hornibrook's biggest critics. The one thing Hornibrook can do, though, Kevin, is he can move the chains. He can manage the game, and he's got a very good running attack to do that. When you put Taylor behind him in that big, burly offensive line, you're not asked to have to go deep and asked to convert 3rd and 7. When you are, it's not going to happen. But if you look at that Wisconsin team, they got first downs. They controlled the time of possession. They let their defense be on the sidelines. And when you have a fresh defense, you can do a lot of good things. Michigan's offense didn't help their defense last year, Kevin. And I think that's going to be the biggest change this year. But, man, that schedule is tough. But I expect them to be near the top of the conference again, Kevin. Yeah. I wouldn't say title game because, man, they've got a lot of tough opponents. But I think you're going to see a different Michigan team this year. That's really all I have on Michigan. Not a lot to add other than I think their offense is going to be better, which in turn will help an already really good defense.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. To move on to Northwestern, let's see here. Let me just make my little timestamp in. An hour 7. Northwestern a year ago talked about Michigan 8-5, 5-4 in the Big Ten a year ago. Northwestern. Now we're getting to the quote unquote top 5, and you can say Michigan's a better program than Northwestern for sure. But Northwestern a year ago 7-2 in the Big Ten, 10-3 overall. They were really good, and Northwestern has those 10-win seasons sometimes, and Iowa has those 10-win seasons sometimes. There are teams in the Big Ten in the middle of the pack that have those years where they win 10 games. And that's why I think when you exclude Michigan and Michigan State and Penn State and Ohio State and Wisconsin, who can easily finish in the top 10 any given year, it seems like, you have these teams that can go out and win 10 games and be a top 10 team. That's what really makes the Big Ten to me, is the meat of the Big Ten. Not even just stars at the top in terms of teams. In the top 5, and 5 of the top 14 teams, according to the AP, are from the Big Ten. But it's the Iowas and the Northwesterns that occasionally it's like, my God, Northwestern won 10 games a year ago. Like, that's what makes the Big Ten so difficult, in my opinion. Anyway, in terms of ranking, this is what I start off with for all these teams. Offensively, Northwestern a year ago was fine. Defensively, they typically have a better defense in general. Number 20 scoring defense, top 10 rushing defense nationally. That sounds about right for a Northwestern team that goes 10-3. Recruiting, this is always interesting to me for Northwestern, and it gives people an idea of how great or how terrible, depending on how you look at it, Pat Fitzgerald is. Number 59 nationally, which is obviously mediocre. You can say bad in terms of a Power 5 recruiting class. They were the worst recruiting class in terms of, those quote-unquote recruiting experts have them as the worst Big Ten recruiting class coming into 2018. The worst in the Big Ten. And yet they still won 10 games a year ago. They had this ridiculous facility built. I don't know if you've seen it, Troy, on social media or Google. You could Google it. New Northwestern football facility. It's unbelievable that they built over this past offseason.
It's funny how you get nice things when you win football games.
Yeah. But it's interesting to me, Troy, that, like, okay, you have this new facility, you win 10 games, you have Justin Jackson, this phenomenal running back that goes through your program, leads the program in rushing yards in terms of program history, gets drafted in the NFL, and yet you have the worst recruiting class in the Big Ten. And still, Northwestern churns out once in a while 10-win seasons like that. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if you want to
throw this out there, Kevin. I guess I'll start on part of my Northwestern thing. So They had a really good year last year. We thought, even when we did our preview last year, that Northwestern would be one of those teams. Don't sleep on them and be ready to play. But you went over the AP top 25 teams, Kevin. Northwestern 10-3 a year ago. Did they sniff the top 25?
They, in terms of I don't even remember.
I'm talking about the preseason. Talking about this preseason poll. 10 wins a year ago. Were they in the top 25?
Right. No, they weren't.
Normally, a team coming off a 10-3 record is maybe going to get a little more respect across the country and maybe slide into maybe 23, 24. Northwestern's not there. Why is that? Part of it is the recruiting class you talked about, and part of it is the guys that they lost. They lost the school's all-time leading rusher, and defensively now here's the thing sometimes where I think stats lie, Kevin. Numbers can lie. To me, that Northwestern defense was average at best.
Yeah.
You say, oh, look at this rushing defense. Well, here's why. Offensively, I think a lot of times teams that they were playing, they either had to pass to get back in the game, or they were playing some of those teams in the Big Ten that didn't have that great rushing attack. I mean, I thought their defense was average at best when I watched them. And I didn't watch every game, but I watched a fair amount. You know that I love Big Ten football. But to me, that Northwestern defense, Kevin, was average at best. And sometimes ranking numbers, total yardage numbers, they don't always paint the right picture. Because what are the individual situations? What are the individual games? Did a team have to play from behind so they chucked the ball 45 times and they only rushed 20 times? Well, yeah, if a team only rushes 20 times against you, they're probably only going to get 80, 90 yards. Yeah, so, hey, our rush defense, look how good our rush defense is. Don't mind that they just torched us for 600 yards in the air. So that's where I come from on rankings, Kevin. Yeah, they're there for a purpose. Otherwise, they wouldn't have them. But sometimes, to me, statistics lie. And when the eye test is there on that Northwestern defense, to me, not in the top half of the Big Ten. So that's my thing about Northwestern. To me, this year, can they sustain a 10-win year? I don't think so. I don't think they win 10 again. That's how I'm going to leave it and turn it back over to you.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they win 10. I think that in general, though, like they return 7 on offense, 6 defensively, which is, I would say, the norm. You return around half, a little more than half. The quarterback returns, Clayton Thorson, who had his ups and downs a year ago, but he's certainly capable. You lose, again, Justin Jackson, the program's all-time leading rusher, which is going to hurt for sure. So less of a running game to lean on, more to lean on with your quarterback, who's now a year older, who, you know, just in terms of comparison, I think he's more talented than Alex Hornibrook, for sure. I don't think he's great.
You won't get any argument there from me.
Yeah, I figured that much. But so this team returns, like I was looking at their little preview in this magazine I have here, and just talking about, like, they have a guy who's an all Big Ten selection returning on the D-line. They've got an all Big Ten selection returning on its linebacking core. Same with the DB, who should be drafted in the NFL. This team returns talent. They return its quarterback. Some of it is based on schedule, like you said. Some of it's based on recruiting in terms of, you know, where the love is in a preseason poll. I think this Northwestern team this year is going to be a top 25 team in the country. Whether that's the 24th best team or the 14th best team, I don't know. But I think that in general this offense is going to go as Clayton Thorson, the quarterback who returns, goes, because more of the load will be on him. But the defense should be solid again, and I love what you brought up because I bring it up for all these teams just to go over, just to give fans a sense of what these teams did a year ago. But, yeah, sometimes because your passing D is atrocious, and like you can say Ohio State's passing defense, and I'm not even looking it up. I would guess that Ohio State's passing defense a year ago, 3 defensive backs selected in the first round of the NFL draft, whatever it is, they could still finish like 40th nationally in pass defense. Why? Because they're always winning. So teams have to pass. So you're going to give up passing yardage. That's just one thing. And some of it is rushing defense as well. You can say, hey, if Northwestern didn't play Wisconsin and Michigan, let's say, teams weren't that great at running the football, so to say. Say Ohio State had an average day. Hey, look, Northwestern turned out a top 10 rushing defense year. These stats can absolutely be skewed in a number of ways, for sure. There's no doubt about that. So I love that point that you brought up there. In terms of, again, this team's returning, they're returning some good players. It'll be interesting to see what they do at running back. But that'll be interesting to me. My last thing here, the schedule at Purdue week 1, which I think is just weird. I don't really get it, why some of these teams start its Big Ten schedule in week 1 of the college football season. In any case.
Before you move on, Kevin, I want to interrupt you there because I got a point to this. If you're going to start scheduling Big Ten conference play in week 1, get rid of the cupcakes. Just do it. Just get rid of them. What good are they? You're going to start conference play. I thought the reason for cupcakes was almost like your preseason, as I air quote.
Right.
You're going to just go into conference play. I'm not so sure, and I'm going back to my coaching days. I would have hated playing conference games in week 1. I need a game or two to get some game legs under my guys. And to play a conference game, a game that, and all games, see, that's the thing. In college football, every game matters because you're only playing 12 or 13. But to play a conference game in week 1, to me, Kevin, I don't like it. I don't think as a coach that I want to have a conference game in week 1. Now, granted, I understand you're limited in the number of games you can play. But, man, week 1, Kevin, conference games, second year in a row this has happened, I dislike it. I don't like, as much as I love Big Ten football, I don't want to see a Northwestern Purdue in week 1. I want to see a Northwestern versus Illinois Chicago. I mean, that's being real about kind of how they play their opponents. And I'm saying that, I dislike cupcakes too, but I really dislike playing conference games in week 1. The Big Ten has to really look at this. What are you accomplishing by doing that? You're already putting conference games in week 1, and you've already got a limited training camp as much as you can do as far as participation goes based on NCAA rules. I don't like it. Carry on, youngster.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just it's weird to me. I don't get it. In any case, I've got nothing more on this Northwestern team. I think schedule-wise, I guess that's what I'll finish up on. The schedule, again, at Purdue week 1. They get Notre Dame, Michigan, Nebraska, Wisconsin, all at home. That's a plus. At Michigan State, that'll be tough. At Iowa, it's not going to be easy. You could say, I guess, that its harder games are at home. But there are, again, Michigan, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Iowa. It's not an easy road. You can say they caught a break getting Michigan and Wisconsin at home, but again, you get 5 quality opponents there. You still have Notre Dame on the schedule. It seems like everyone in the Big Ten plays Notre Dame. But it's going to be tough. Again, winning 10 games is going to be tough. This team, I think, it all comes down to Clayton Thorson and how he performs. If he does not get better from a year ago and he stays inconsistent, then you could see Northwestern fall to 7-6, something like that. But to move on to Michigan State.
Before you move on, I just want to give my little last words on Northwestern.
Yeah.
The thing about Northwestern, Kevin, that helps them is the division that they're in the Big Ten.
Right.
They're not in, and right now we have to fully admit you've got a side of the division with Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State. Holy cripes. The other side, not saying Wisconsin has an easy road. You got Nebraska that should be better, but we don't know. Frost, he turned around Central Florida how quick. You've got Northwestern that has put together some solid teams. They're not the laughing stock anymore. It's not chalked up as an easy win. But where's the domination on that side of the division, our conference?
Yeah.
It's not there. So Northwestern, could they contend to be in the Big Ten title game? My answer is yes. They could. But things have to go right. You mentioned Nebraska. You got Michigan. You got Wisconsin. Those aren't easy games. But could you contend for a spot in the Big Ten championship game based on the division you're in? Yes. Even Nebraska, Kevin, you look at it, if things fell into place, everybody has already penciled Wisconsin back into the Big Ten title game.
Yeah.
And I'm a Badger fan. And we'll talk about it next week. You're going to go over the schedule. I'm going to talk probably more in depth about that team because that's the team I follow. I understand that team. I know what's coming back. I looked at it. I know what my expectations are. Not going to let the cat out of the bag. It's the easy side of the division right now until teams start recruiting, and all of a sudden you put teams 1, 2, 3, and 4 on that side into the top 25. I mean, you went over the AP preseason poll. Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State. Wow, they're all in the same division in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be left out. Who does that leave on the other side? Of the 5 that are in the top 14, it leaves Wisconsin and then a Northwestern, a Nebraska. So could Northwestern surprise people? They could, but, man, they got a tough schedule. And defensively, I know you mentioned, the all Big Ten selection. Sometimes offense helps defense, and as I mentioned with Michigan, their offense let their defense down. I think it's vice versa for Northwestern. I think their offense helped their defense by controlling the clock, not putting their defense into bad situations. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I like this Northwestern team. I think they're going to be fun to watch. They've got – the big thing is a quarterback coming back that understands the system, but what kind of weapons are going to be around him at receiver, at running back, and are they going to put together an offensive line that's going to keep that quarterback upright? But I think Northwestern, I don't think they're a 10-win team again, but I think they're going to be a fun one to watch. That's all I got. Let's move on to our last team, youngster.
Well, unfortunately, we got 2 more, depending on how you look at it. We talked about Michigan, talked about Northwestern. I just want to mention this, too, before we get to Michigan State and then Penn State. Again, longer show here because we talked about a couple topics more in depth beforehand. But I'm flipping the page in this magazine, and you brought it up, and I just wanted to mention it one more time, too. This magazine here, over 250 pages in it that I'm reading here, glancing at, talking about Big Ten teams here, and what they did a year ago, and they go in order of alphabetically. And it's like, Michigan State, flip the page. Ohio State, Penn State, like you said, Troy, all in one division. And you could make the argument that these 4 teams could finish in the top 10 of the country, and they're all in one division. It's absurd. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, the SEC had something like that a few years ago, too, where it's like Alabama, and I don't know, I forget how the SEC is completely divvied up, but it's like when Auburn has those good years, and it's like, oh, my God, you got Alabama, you got Georgia, or you have Florida in one of those good years. So you have like 3 or 4 teams that are arguably like top 10, top 15 teams all in one division. That's like, my God, look at how loaded the SEC West is. Right now it's look at this Big Ten division that has the 2 Michigan schools and then Ohio State and Penn State sprinkling in top 5 recruiting classes nationally now, and it's like, my God. So, yes, there is a complete divide in terms of power in the Big Ten, in terms of division. Wisconsin, Northwestern, Nebraska, they have much of an easier go for sure. on average, just based on where they are in the divisions. In any case, Michigan State a year ago, 10-3, 7-2, just like Northwestern. For whatever reason, in my mind, I'm just putting Michigan State as the number 4 team from a year ago. But
Fired Antonio!
Yeah, they were supposed to be super young last year. They were 3-9, fired Antonio, super young, and a year ago they go 10-3. So from 3-9 to 10-3 with a young roster. And I say a young roster because they return. Guess how many starters they return on offense this year, Troy?
9.
Nope, sorry, too low. They return 10 offensive starters. 10 on offense, 9 on defense. I mean, it's ridiculous. They return basically everybody from a year ago that won 10 games. I mean, that's unbelievable job by D'Antonio. Just wanted to say that. Throw that out there to start. In terms of
so rankings, let me ask this, Kevin. I know, and I'm being sarcastic, and this show is already, holy cow, we're really getting into this one. This is going to be a 2-hour bugger almost.
Right.
If Michigan State falters and they lose, let's say they go 1-2 in their first 3, are we going to hear the fired Antonio thing again? I mean, really. I know we tried to squash it last year. We're 100% behind D'Antonio. But do you think we're going to hear it? I know we're talking Michigan State, so we might as well get into it. If they don't get off to the expectations, I mean, they're ranked, 11th right now in the preseason poll? Is that what it was, 11?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, 11 or 12. And so the expectations are high. They're returning, 19 starters. So at this point, do you think if Michigan State would falter out of the gate that we're going to hear early season fire D'Antonio again?
I'll say this: if they stumble out of the gate, yeah, because they start with Utah State, at Arizona State, at Indiana, Central Michigan at home. So I mean, if they're like even 2-2, that's suspect. I mean, if they're like 1-3 in those games, then this season is going to be a wreck. But in terms of what this team does, and I wanted to mention this too, is that a year ago, okay, they took this big leap up. Oh, my God, they've got 19 starters returning, 10-3 a year ago. Sky's the limit this year. Well, just hold on, because you still have to play Northwestern. You still have to play at Penn State. You still have to play Michigan. You still have to play Ohio State. You still have to travel to Nebraska. It's not, it's a lighter Big Ten schedule, but you still have easily 5 games that are losable at the least. Even at Arizona State, I have no idea what Arizona State's supposed to be this year. Let's say it's one of those decent 8-5 Arizona State teams. Okay, at Arizona State early in the year, something could happen where Michigan State loses 31-30. I don't think that's ridiculous. Again, I have no idea what Arizona State's going to be, but
I think you went probably a little low on that score, youngster. It could be more like 45-42.
Okay.
I mean, Arizona State, we know what's going to happen down at Arizona State. They're going to sling the ball around. They're going to put up points.
Yeah.
And, again, we've talked about college defense. Doesn't matter how good your defense is, offense usually prevails. And Arizona State is a team. Doesn't matter if you're a college football fan and you equate Arizona State, you equate it to offense. Now, defensively, they're probably not going to do much. But an Arizona State team, and they're at home, Arizona State's probably going to put 30-40 up against Michigan State. So they have to be primed to score 35 or 40. And they could still lose doing that. And that wouldn't be terrible. Now, if they lost like 56-0, well, then there's an issue. But Arizona State, that's points. That's offense. I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, for sure. 100% correct there. In general, with Arizona State, this team, again, you return everything. You return your quarterback, Brian Lewerke. That's a plus. You return L.J. Scott, which has been, I think, a disappointment to this point in his career, because he was supposed to be basically like, hey, there's Le'Veon Bell. Okay, he left, and there's, a couple-year void, let's say. L.J. Scott's in here, and highly regarded, freshman coming in, and he shows promise his freshman year. Then he has a down year his sophomore year. And then last year, as a junior, okay, he still doesn't rush for 1,000 yards. You can say he was fine, but still didn't even rush for 1,000 yards. And it's like, okay, you're Michigan State's top back. What are you doing? Now he's a senior. And so it's like, are you going to finally get the best of L.J. Scott? Are you going to get the best of Lewerke? Defensively, you return all these guys. If everything works out perfectly, you still have to go at Penn State. You still have to play Northwestern, Michigan, Ohio State. This team could win 8 games, 9 games, and it's still successful, in my opinion. But you have to play juggernauts. I mean, they're not – Michigan State's the 11th ranked team coming into this year, and they could be the 11th best team. But like I said, they could still go 9-4. I don't think that's ridiculous.
No, Kevin, they could play Michigan and lose. They could play Ohio State and lose, and Penn State and lose, and play them tough and play them close, and have it be a one-score loss.
Sure.
At the end of the day, it's a loss.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're a bad team.
Right.
I mean, you could go to – I mean, people, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about Nebraska. Frost is going to change that culture. We kind of chalked up any game with Nebraska halfway in the middle of the season last year as a loss.
Yeah.
I think you're not going to get that this year. He probably doesn't have the talent that he wants, but that team's going to play football. And when you go into Nebraska, Frost is an alum. He knows what it means to play in front of that Nebraska crowd. Any game at Nebraska, and I don't care what team you are, whether you're an Ohio State or a Michigan State, you best be ready to play football when you go to Nebraska this year. You could go there and play your A game and still lose at Nebraska. And I'm not saying that Nebraska is a better football team, but I think the culture will have changed at Nebraska with Scott Frost being the coach. And when you play at home in any Big Ten stadium, you need to bring your A game. I don't care where Nebraska sits as far as the skill level goes. I think Nebraska is going to be one of those teams that is going to be a tough win at Nebraska, no matter who you are. You can be Ohio State. You can be Michigan, Wisconsin. I don't care who you are. You're not walking into Nebraska, manhandling the Cornhuskers, and leaving with a win just on your laurels. You are going to have to earn it at Nebraska. So Michigan State, Kevin, I just mentioned the 3 teams. You got Michigan, you've got Penn State, Ohio State, plus you travel to Nebraska. That could be 4 conference losses, and you could still have played your best football. That's how tough that road's going to be for Michigan State. And I hope people don't throw that back on D'Antonio, because I'm really tired of having to say, fire D'Antonio! He's doing a heck of a job, Michigan State fans. The grass is not greener on the other side, but your record this year may not be as good as last year. But your football team may be better. Doesn't make sense, does it, youngster?
It does to me, but unfortunately, boosters and people like that make a difference. Unfortunately, you can say, "Hey, we returned everyone, and we lost more games than we won." Not necessarily in total, but in terms of what they were a year ago, and that's based on not even having to play Wisconsin. That's not going at Michigan, at Ohio State. They could still, like you said, easily lose 4 games. They could lose to Northwestern. They could lose at Arizona State. Your team could be better, but your record may not, and that's something that fans either understand or they don't. Unfortunately, I'm ready to move on to Penn State if you are, Troy.
Yep, let's do it. Let's move on to the Penn State Nittany Lions. People looking at the Nittany Lions, Kevin, saying, man, well, they lost their guy, Shaquan Barkley. Well, I'm looking at it, and I don't know if he was a great college player. But I look at this team, and this team is just loaded with depth. They added to it with a great recruiting class, and they're returning McSorley. They're returning a quarterback that is very good. I don't think he's going to be like a Hall of Fame NFL quarterback, but the kid is a very good college quarterback. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, Nick Saban and those great defenses he has, when he has to play Johnny Manziel, it can turn into a loss. He doesn't have to play Cam Newton, Deshaun Watson, give up 40 points and lose, which he has done. But he can play Johnny Manziel. He can play Tim Tebow and lose. because that's just college football. If you have a great offense, you can score 40 on anyone. That's college football. That's not happening in the NFL, although rule changes may sway things a little more toward that.
You weren't on the Saturday show, youngster.
No,
I talked about the new helmet rule. I know this is the Big Ten. This is the Big Ten show, but I got myself worked up on the Saturday show. I didn't need your help with that new helmet rule.
I'm sure you did, which we'll have to talk about at some point. But in any case, Penn State, I've been talking about numbers in terms of stats for these teams, like rushing offense and pass defense and scoring offense. They were great a year ago. That's all you need to know. 11-2 overall, 7-2 in conference. They were great. They were not impeccable making it to the college football playoff, but they were right there knocking on the door. Recruiting-wise, like you said, number 2 in the Big Ten, only to Ohio State, number 6 nationally. That's what Penn State has become. Like, this is it. Like, Penn State's no longer, they got the 16th best recruiting class in the country. Oh, that's really cool. No, they're getting, like, top 10 recruiting classes every year now. That's what they have become. It's not just Ohio State and Michigan getting top 10 recruiting classes.
Can I throw this out, youngster?
Yeah.
Again, I'm a Badger fan, but we do a Big Ten show. I just want to go on record and say congratulations, Nittany Lion fans. Where you were 10 years ago after the Paterno Sandusky thing,
yep.
Look where this program has come. I applaud Penn State for digging themselves from the bottom of the pond, because they literally were pond scum in college football. That's where they were. The NCAA stripped them of scholarships, stripped them of everything. They were as low as a program could be. And now, look, you're riding on cloud 9, and people and players want to go to Penn State. So I'm doing an air clap for Penn State fans. I'm proud of Penn State and what Penn State has done. I don't know how many universities, Kevin, can overcome what Penn State had to do. I mean, literally, they were the pond scum of the NCAA. And look where they're at now. I wanted to just throw that out there because I really am proud of what that university was able to accomplish and all that adversity they had to go through to maintain a football program when the NCAA put the hammer down on players that were not even part of that. And for the guys and every single one of those players, and I'm not going to name names because I don't know a lot of them, but every player, and if any of those former players that played in those years happen to listen to this podcast, find us on Twitter, TroyRobert967, at Kid Cunny, and our show handle at YoungsterOldMan. I would love for one of those players to be a guest on our show, Kevin, just to let us know what it was like to have to go through that turmoil, through that adversity while they were dealing with that, and they had nothing to do with it. And so I wanted to go out, and I felt it was right. I was waiting for the day we got to talk about Penn State football in this preview. I've been kind of brewing to just give my vocal accolades to that university for doing what they did to get to the top of the cloud, because they were the lowest that you could be for a program. So, again, I'll turn it back over to the youngster, but congratulations just to the university. Not just football. Anybody that attended, any fan, any alum, I just wanted to give my props to that university, Kevin. I don't care who you cheer for. What they did is remarkable. Take it away.
Couldn't say it better. Couldn't say it better. They're on top of the college football world, other than being basically Alabama as a dynasty. Because that's what Alabama is. I mean, they're ranked number 1 preseason every single year, basically. That's not really going overboard at all. That's just a reality, and it seems like they win a title basically every other year. Like, I think it's like 3-7 for the last 9. It's something like that. They're the apex of college football, and then you've got teams like Ohio State, and Penn State, and you're starting to see Wisconsin move up there. These teams that are just always in the top 10. And that's what Penn State has become. To get into this season, though, like you said, it completely hats off. And if you get the right coach, in college, professionally too, but in college for sure, if you get a Chip Kelly at Oregon, Oregon can go to the title game. Oregon, which was basically nothing before Chip Kelly. You get Chip Kelly, boom, you're beating teams by 50 at halftime. If you're Penn State and you're the scum of the earth, and you get James Franklin, who makes Vanderbilt actually like a respectable football program somehow, and you get him into Penn State with some players, look where you are now. It's the same thing with Nebraska. It's like a year ago, Nebraska had the same record as Rutgers, literally. Conference-wise, overall-wise, same record as Rutgers. You bring in Scott Frost, change the culture, give Scott Frost some real players, and it's like we're going to see what Nebraska becomes. Not to say that they're going to be top 10 nationally every single year. Maybe they do. Maybe they are. I don't know. I don't think that's ridiculous, honestly. But James Franklin, Penn State, hats off to that. To get into this year, again, like you said, Troy, you return your quarterback, Trace McSorley, which I was getting into, Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, Deshaun Watson, Cam Newton, all these guys that can put up 40 on anyone. Trace McSorley can do that as well, I think. You return 8 offensive starters. Unfortunately, no Saquon Barkley, no Mike Gesicki, who's, I believe, second-round pick in the NFL draft. Deshaun Hamilton, who was a phenomenal receiver a year ago at Penn State. I think he was a third-round pick. I forgot exactly where he is in the NFL now, but those 3 guys were phenomenal at Penn State for the last few years, not even just last year, but Barkley, Gesicki, Hamilton were all phenomenal. So you return 8 guys offensively, you return your quarterback, but there are questions. There are questions there. It's not just automatic, boom, this offense is ready to roll. There are some questions there. Defensively, you return 2 starters. That's also a question. So it's like, okay, Penn State, what is it? I pulled it up just a second ago. What were they, like 12, I think, overall in terms of the AP? Troy, I looked and saw Michigan State was 11. I think Penn State's 12. They've got some questions. They've got Trace McSorley back, but they got, again, the number 6 recruiting class a year ago. I don't remember what they were recruiting-wise, but they've got talented guys coming in, freshman, sophomore, whatever you have. They've got depth. They've got talent. It's just a matter of getting that talent to perform at a younger age. That's what it is. That's what Ohio State does. That's what Michigan does. Once you get these teams older, that's when it's like, okay, this team can win a national title. It's not a stretch. This year, I think that would probably be a stretch because, again, you're missing so much of your offensive production and losing 9 starters defensively. That hurts. That's going to ding somehow. So these new stars have to emerge at a young age, basically. From a scheduling standpoint, they went out and scheduled Pittsburgh, which is a Power 5 school. But Troy, I think you know how good Pitt football is. That shouldn't be too difficult for Penn State to win.
Well, I'll tell you, though, Kevin, it's that rivalry game. You throw the records out, and Pitt has a good young quarterback, literally a young quarterback. He's a sophomore, and he's a very confident guy, and I think he's a very capable and will be a very capable quarterback, but it's going to be a big stage. It's a huge stage for this young man. And, Pitt has a lot of questions too, but it's one of those games where you throw the records out. It's a rivalry game. It's not going to be, hey, Penn State can just show up and say, hey, look at all the talent we have. It's going to be a game where you're going to have to play for 60 minutes, and you're going to have to play mistake-free football. Because if you make mistakes, you know what can happen, Kevin. But it's a game, and unfortunately, I believe that game is going off the schedule again. Penn State does not want to renew the series, and I don't know. We can talk about a little bit. Is it because they want to add and I'm air quoting, a higher quality opponent? Or is it because they're afraid of what Pitt can do to them, beat them, and then ruin national title hopes like Pitt did a few years ago? I don't know where it is. I'm not even speculating. I'm not a fly on the wall in that athletic department. But is it because they're scared of Pittsburgh? And I don't mean that in a sense like, oh, man, Pitt's always better than us. It's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
And if you lose to Pitt, Pitt's not going to go on an 11-2 season or 11-1 season. They're going to have – Pitt is kind of like the Northwestern, how you were explaining that team, Kevin. Pitt is a team that, hey, if things go right, they could throw out a 10-win season. But Pitt is a 7-5 team, an 8-4 team, and if Penn State would drop that game, that's going to hurt them. It's going to hurt where they're at, and Pitt fans are all upset. Oh, Penn State, they're chickens. You know what? If you were at the level where Penn State is right now, and I'm not here to offend any Pitt fans, I know a lot of them. You got to look at what the big picture is. Is it beating Pitt? No. Penn State doesn't care about beating Pitt. Pittsburgh fans, they care about beating Penn State. It's not about that. When your program is at that level where you care about beating a team, you're not where you need to be. You're not where you want to be. Now, when you're an Ohio State and a Michigan rival, both programs are great. Yeah, it's about beating them, but it's also about winning a national title. You have to beat the other one to get to the national title. Pitt, Penn State don't play in the same conference. So Penn State beating Pitt, they could care less about the bragging rights for Pennsylvania. They want to get to the national title. Fans from last year are very disappointed. That was the team that was supposed to get to the college football playoff. But they're in that division, Kevin, that is so darn tough. So Penn State fans say, oh, it's a disappointing year. It was still a good year.
Yeah.
And if you can consistently win 10, 11 games, that's where you want your program to be. And so for me, when I heard Penn State doesn't want to renew the rivalry, okay, it's probably the best move for the program because you're not getting that high-quality win by beating Pitt. So Pitt fans, you need to look at the big picture. Your program is not where Penn State program is. And so for you, Penn State, they don't want to play us. They're afraid. No, they're not afraid of you. It just doesn't help their team to play that game every year. It can only hurt them. So I wanted to throw that out there, Kevin, since you brought up Pitt being on the schedule. I thought that's pretty relevant, that little topic. I know I went off on a tangent again, but, hey, our show is already long today.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to encourage fans to skip around to parts that they want to, because if you listen to this podcast for the full, basically 2 hours, hats off to you. We love you. That's not an exaggeration. If you're listening to this podcast all 2 hours, then hats off to you. I will say this, though. Penn State, again.
Well, if they throw it on in the background, youngster, they throw it on in the background when they're doing work, maybe doing the dishes, maybe, doing something around the house, they may listen for 2 hours. But I'm glad that you're going to do like you did on the last write-up, and you're going to put where the times are for certain teams. I think that really helped. That show did very well. Oh, I don't know if you saw the little post. I don't know if you saw the post by Coach Goodpasture, most listened to shows 2 weeks ago. Go Big was in the top 5. Woo-hoo-hoo. There we were.
Look at that. Top 5.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Top 5. So,
stuff.
keep putting the little benchmarks in there. Continue, youngster. We got to finish Penn State up.
Yeah, we do. So, again, it's all about Trace McSorley at quarterback. It's about your 9 new defensive starters on that side of the ball. New faces are going to emerge for Penn State, but they will. Schedule-wise, again, at Pitt, at Michigan, that's not going to be easy. Thanks to your lovely division, you get Ohio State and Michigan State, luckily at home. They also, fortunately this year, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, they also play Wisconsin, which is also at home. So Penn State gets Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan State at home this year. So I guess a favor somewhat. It's not a favor to draw Wisconsin from the other side, but it's a favor that you at least get them at home this year. That Penn State's got some losable games here, for sure, without a doubt. Going to be super talented, going to have Trace McSorley, going to put up points. But new names, and there goes my dog. New names have to emerge for sure. But as always, with all these Big Ten teams, you have losable games. That basically goes without saying. For all these Big Ten teams that we talk about next week, I'm very excited to talk about Wisconsin and Ohio State. Obviously, you have mentioned before you're a Wisconsin guy. I'm an Ohio State guy. That'll be fun next week. Probably not going to go 2 hours, even though we certainly could. But we're probably won't, I guess, if we only talk about two teams and at least try to keep it within 2 hours.
Don't make promises, youngster. Do not make any promises to the fans. Do not even tease them. Don't tease them that it won't be 2 hours, because when we do that, it'll probably be 3.
Very well could be. But so again, this Penn State team, I don't know. I'm not going to give again a prediction. We're not doing that on these teams, but this team gets Ohio State at home, and if things work out and Trace McSorley becomes what he can, the sky's the limit for this team. It's just a matter of getting these young guys into the system and understanding the system quickly and becoming stars, essentially, like Saquon was, like Gesicki was, like Deshaun Hamilton was in terms of production anyway. Big shoes to fill. But big talent to fill those shoes in, if that makes any sense. This team's going to be really good, but certainly has losable games, just like every other Big Ten team out there.
Well, Kevin, you brought up something here with Penn State, and when you look at Penn State and everything that they can do, this team, where they're at, has the talent to be I don't want to put them up in the likes of Alabama yet. But when you're talking about a team that is always going to be in the top 10, it can be a Penn State. It can be there. I was a little skeptical on James Franklin. I didn't know how he would do in the program. He's come in and he's taken the bull by the horns, and he has put together quite the program. And so at this point, Penn State wants to maintain that level. You mentioned the question marks. Yeah, they're question marks, but I think from what I have read about and what I've heard about James Franklin, it's almost like next man up. Yeah, Barkley's gone. Okay, we've got to move on. Too bad. Somebody's got to
bring in a 5-star running back to replace him.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing, but I remember listening to a press conference or an interview that happened a couple of weeks ago as camp broke and they're starting, and it was basically, well, next man up. Who's going to step up? Some guys got to step up. We'll find out who they are. And that's where you want your program to be. But, man, Kevin, like I mentioned with Michigan State, Penn State in that division, you've got to play Michigan. You've got to play Ohio State. You got to play Michigan State. I mean, right there, again, you can play your best football and still come away with a loss. And that's why, you look at last year, and I know Penn State fans were disappointed. Well, why are you disappointed? It's still a good year. I understand why. But we talked about it on a show last year. Were they setting the expectations too high? Because in college football, 2 losses really gets hairy about getting into the college football playoff. Really hairy. And when you play in that Big Ten division, you've already got 3 games that are maybes, no matter how good you are. Penn State could be ranked number 1 in the country. And I'm still looking at those games. I would favor them if they were at home, but I'm not chalking up a win against Michigan. I'm not chalking up a win against Ohio State, and I'm not chalking up a win against Michigan State. I'm not. If the game's at home, I'm going to favor you. But as far as my analysis, it's anybody's game. Those programs are very good. And so there's 3 losses. That puts you out of the playoff right there if you lose all 3 of them. You could win the rest of your games. You're still out of the playoff. But to me, Kevin, McSorley is the guy that is going to be the fate of Penn State this year. I know defensively, there are a lot of new starters in there, but we've talked about this. And, Kevin, you know I'm an old-school guy. I love defense. I love watching players hit quarterbacks. I love good, hard-nosed tackling. But, hey, I'm a realist. It's college football. You've got to have a quarterback. And I mentioned it. McSorley, to me, is a guy that's going to have a great college career, maybe hook on in the NFL. I don't think he's an A-level starter in the NFL. Now, he could maybe improve.
I honestly, Troy, don't even think he's going to start in the NFL for like 8 years, 10 years. I don't.
Okay, I thought you were going to disagree with me and all of a sudden say he's going to be like a lottery pick.
No, I mean, I don't know what NFL scouts are saying. I just think he's a phenomenal college quarterback.
Yeah, we agree there.
Yeah. But NFL-wise, I've got no expectation.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I think he can hook on with a team. And if he hooks on with a certain team that needs a quarterback, he might get an opportunity.
Right.
But to me, where I was going with that is he's a great college quarterback. And if he can just play to his level of skill and bring along the new guys, like you said, he lost Hamilton, he lost Barkley. But to me, he can help his running back if he's playing really well at quarterback, but the offensive line is going to help the running back. But McSorley can elevate the level of his wideouts. And I think you got a quarterback. We've talked about the great ones in the NFL, the elite NFL quarterbacks. They make players around them better. It's a far different cry in college. But this is what I think makes McSorley a great college quarterback, is that he can help his wideouts. And he's going to have to. He doesn't have a Hamilton anymore. But I think McSorley is a college quarterback that can do that. That's why when all is said and done, depending on this year, you could be talking of McSorley as one of those guys in college that was a great college quarterback. And if he's a guy that can go out there and play mistake-free football, they can win football games. And he can go out there and help that team win a lot of games. To me, Kevin, this is the Penn State team that is scary. Why? The fans' expectations now aren't national championship anymore. It's funny how those things change with the drop of a dime. But these are the teams that then scare you. The team that isn't expected to be in the national championship game is all of a sudden that team that goes out there and plays great, and then all of a sudden halfway through the season, oh my God, we can make the national championship. We've already beat Ohio State. We beat Michigan. Because the expectations aren't there. I don't know if that made any sense to you at all, Kevin, but this Penn State team to me is still scary. Still very scarily, because in my mind, I know Michigan has Patterson, and maybe in the long run, Patterson is a better quarterback than McSorley. But I think right now in 2018, if you are telling me to rank the quarterbacks in the Big Ten, McSorley's number one. I put him ahead of Patterson. I haven't seen Patterson play in the Big Ten. That could change by the end of the year, but right now this is a preseason preview show. I'm ranking the quarterbacks. I put McSorley number one. And if you have the best quarterback in the Big Ten, you're going to win a lot of football games. That's all I have, youngster. How you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I agree completely. You've got the best quarterback in the Big Ten. You've got two of your top three receivers returning. You've got four offensive linemen returning. You've got guys that have played football before and were led by McSorley before, and McSorley throws for 3,500 yards before and runs for 11 touchdowns last year, and it's like, this guy's the real deal at Penn State. And for his senior season, I'm sure he's not going to let up. I'm sure he's ready to be the leader, as opposed to, hey, look what Saquon can do every single down. And, oh, look, play action, and I can throw it to this NFL receiver on the outside or this NFL tight end in the middle. It's been super easy for McSorley in the past. I don't think it's going to be as easy. But I'm with you. He's the top quarterback in the Big Ten. He is a top 5 college quarterback next year, without a doubt, in my opinion. Yeah, I've got nothing else on Penn State. Again, next week we're just talking about Wisconsin and Ohio State, and we're inevitably going to be talking about Ohio State's decision with Urban Meyer that's coming tomorrow. So we will have a longer show next week as well, even though we're talking about 2 p.m.
Maybe more information on the Maryland incident. I mean, there could be things that come out. I mean, I really think that it's a topic that shouldn't get brushed under the rug. We always talk about moral obligations, and when you look at somebody dying in camp, it has to be investigated. And if it comes down to the coach and the bullying side, that holds a special place in my heart. We'll definitely talk about it. So, we're going to have another great show next week. I'm going to tell you what's special just for you, newlywed youngster. I'm going to cue up some special Going to the Chapel music just for you to end the show. Just for you. We're going to end this show going to the chapel, going to get married, just for you. And I'm not singing. I will not serenade you, and I will not sing because, 1, I'm not a good singer, and 2, the fans then would probably never listen again. So, with that said, everybody, make sure you follow us on Twitter at TroyRobert967. The youngster is at Kid Cunny, and our show handle at Youngster Old Man. Hope you enjoyed the long show today. We'll get back with you next week. Have a good day, everyone.